Hello everyone, I am Darkstar Archangel, and in this video I will list my top 10 things that I want to see in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Now before I get to this list, yes, I am a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, and yes, I have played the first game. Haven't played the second one yet, but I've definitely completed the first one. I even passed the 420s mode and everything. Now this list is just my opinion of what I would think would be cool to see in this game. Don't consider this list as fact of what's really going to happen in the game. And I'm not trying to tell Scott Cawthon what to do. These are just some features, mechanics, content, gimmicks, and etc. of what I would like to see in the next game, if not the third game. And yes, this list is inspired by Smike's videos and his numerous top 10 Five Nights at Freddy's videos. So without further ado, here's number 10. Number 10. Steam achievements and Steam cards. Now you guys may say, no one cares about Steam achievements. That's just an opinion. I would just consider it as an option. It would be interesting to add an achievement feature to the game so that it would confirm that your friends on Steam have beaten a 420 challenge or something like that. Collecting Steam cards and Steam badges like Freddy Fazbear, the Marionette, and other cool cards to collect and increase your Steam level, that's a cool feature that I would like to see. Number 9. New game modes. We all know about the custom night mode after you beat night 6 in each of the previous games, but let's say if there was a new game mode like survival mode. Let's say if you couldn't run out of power and you had to survive for as long as possible against the animatronics. Now, I did my research, and in every night in the first game, in real time it takes about 8 minutes and 30 seconds to get to 6 AM. Now, in survival mode, instead of showing an in-game clock, it would show a real-time clock. It records the number of seconds and minutes, and let's say that if you survive between 9 to 12 minutes, you get a bronze medal. If you survive between 12 to 15 minutes, you get a silver medal. If you survive for more than 15 minutes of real-time gameplay, you get the golden medal, like with a picture of Golden Freddy on it. And the Steam achievement for that to add to the mix. Number 8. Human character names given right off the bat. You know how in the previous games where the phone guy calls you? Well, this should just apply to the second game because in the first game those are just recordings. But in the second game, we know for a fact that the phone calls aren't recordings. They were live phone calls, especially when you play the 6th night. You can tell that it sounds like he's talking to you live. Well, you know what bothered me a bit? Is that the phone guy never says your character's name, which in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, it was Jeremy Fitzgerald. And it's awkward how the phone guy never says your character's name. But like I said, that isn't the case with the first game, since they were actually recordings rather than phone calls. Well, I would like to hear the characters actually say your character's name if the in-game phone calls are actually phone calls, unless if they're recordings. We want to hear the characters say, "Hello Mr. Miles Upshur," or whatever your name is, in the phone calls. On a side note, we also want to know the name of the phone guy or whoever is calling you or giving you the recordings. Number 7. Advanced Menu System. We want to have a settings and options menu. Scott Cawthon, if you're watching this, please allow us to have the freedom to choose between full screen or windowed mode. Also, give us the freedom to choose a resolution that best fits our desires or monitors, whether we're playing in full screen or windowed mode. Also, when we press escape during gameplay, please send it to the main menu rather than completely exiting the game. Thank you. Number 6. Scarier than the previous games. Now, when I looked at the first game, it really looked like a dark vintage atmosphere. There were only a few enemies to deal with, and the way the animatronics were portrayed gave me the chills, even when I was watching videos about it. However, this wasn't much the same for the second game. Sure, there were more animatronics to deal with, but everything looks brighter, less scary, and the animatronics look like they're trying to scare you through the cameras, but it just fails. They act like kids coming in to bother you rather than actually trying to haunt you. So in the next game, I want to see a darker, more eerie atmosphere, and especially better frightening ways that animatronics approach you, better than both previous games combined. Number 5. New obstacles. Now I know that Scott Cawthon will put his own obstacles and items that you have to use in the next game to fend off the animatronics, as the new teaser screenshot is titled, "What Can We Use?" By that I'm guessing you have to use more than one mask or it means something else. I'm not sure why it's showing a toy box filled with toy animatronic parts though, but I myself came up with my own obstacles that the player has to deal with. The first one is a generator. Let's say if they brought the power limit back into the game, they would have to put a generator in the pizzeria to manifest their own power, and the player has to keep going to the generator room to recharge the building's energy or something. The second one is steel pressure doors in other rooms. Yes, these doors were the main means of defense in the first game, but wouldn't it be cool if you could see these doors in the other rooms and activate them through the cameras or whenever you move around if it's free roam? Now, if I made the script of the phone guide to explain this, it would sound something like this. Now, you may have noticed these unique doors we've placed around the building. These doors were made for emergencies, and these special doors are restricted to be activated by hired security guards. Interesting, right? Now, even though we could use normal doors, that wouldn't stop criminals from simply turning the knobs and breaking through the locks. So that's why we have these doors. Plus, these doors also have a special pressure system to keep the steel doors closed. If these steel doors were installed without the pressure systems, then people can just simply slide the doors open without any problems. Even though we could keep these doors shut, the pressure systems use up a whole lot of energy compared to anything else. The cameras are fine, the lights are fine, but the steel pressure doors, yeah, it's best not to keep them closed for too long. Another interesting thing about these doors is that they have scanners in the doorways to keep people from getting crushed by the doors when people try to close them. Another thing by the company is that we don't want to spend too much money on the electricity bill, so we are going to limit the amount of power used per day, and either you don't use the doors anymore or the building will just shut off. So remember, just close the doors only when absolutely necessary. Not only will you save power, but you will also help save money. Not just for us, but also for you as well. The less power you use, the more money you make. Now the third idea is the power box. This should apply with steel doors being in other rooms if this game isn't free roam. Let's say if there was a power box in a separate room and you had to prevent the animatronics from entering the room to keep them from turning off the building by blocking them with the steel pressure doors. That's something to give players a challenge. Number 4. Actual 3D gameplay with Oculus Rift support. I know that the characters and everything are 3D, however the actual gameplay is just 2D rendered pictures of 3D models. It would give the player a very thrilling experience if the game was actually a 3D game, especially if the game had Oculus Rift support. Audiences would take the game to an extreme personal experience and get great scares when they see something that does look like it's coming right into their faces. There are games like Doom 3. It's a first-person shooter game with a horror theme to it, in a sci-fi and terrifying atmosphere. It has a great way of displaying computer screens and camera monitors in-game as seen in this video. Also a good way of scaring the player with certain events like this. Other examples of great 3D horror games that give good scares are Fear 2 and Outlast, like when Alma jump scares you when she appears and wrestles you for half a second, or in Outlast when you get attacked it forces you to face a certain direction when something attacks you, Because in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I found it odd that when Foxy or the marionette attacks while you're facing all the way to the right or the left, or even if you're facing straight, they look like they're coming out of nowhere. Plus, if the game was really 3D, it would also prevent people from spoiling themselves with digging through the picture files of the games. Speaking of cameras, I would also like to see you control the cameras and have a more 360 control ability to see everything around it. Number 3. Free roam. Now, this is rumored, according to one of Smike's videos, that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 will have free roam. It's said in a hidden message run, which is probably your main or only means of defense, which might replace the doors and the mask. Now, the reasons why free roam would be interesting, especially if the game does have actual 3D gameplay, is because this would give the player a sense of exploration, and if that is the case, hopefully the pizzeria in the game is extremely non-linear, which will make the game a bit more of a challenge and give the player and the animatronics more routes to take throughout the game. Number 2. Gathering clues. The Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is full of mysteries. Yes, we know we can see visual clues throughout the previous games, but I myself would like to see more. You know how in Outlast you pick up documents and write journals when you record something? Or how about other examples, like Doom 3 or Dead Space? Those games had audio logs that played voice recordings which revealed past events in those games. Well, if the next Five Nights at Freddy's game has free roam, I would like to see documents and audio tapes placed around the building. We want to know which animatronic caused the bite of 87 and who the victim is. We want to know who the Purple Man is. We want to listen to actual hints and read documents or news reports or something. In the previous games, we're getting all of these hints, but we're not getting any straight answers. So please give us more than just visual hints around the games to easily identify what happened to every piece of history with the pizzeria and the characters. Number 1. Taking place at the latest time in the timeline. By that I mean we want the game to take place in the future. From what we know is that the second game took place in time before the first game, which means that the second game was a prequel, which should explain why we can still hear the same phone guy. And if the next game is going to take place after the first game, then please hire a different voice actor for the phone calls or recordings, please. Now let's try to recap the timeline. Fredbear's Family Diner had one animatronic, which is probably Golden Freddy. How I believe this? Just go and watch Smike's top 10 facts of Golden Freddy. Then after the horrible incident of the crying child getting attacked, that gave birth to the spirit of the marionette. And since that horrible incident gave Fredbear's Family Diner a bad reputation, they had to replace the old mascot with 4 new ones, which gave birth to the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, also according to the game theorists. And Golden Freddy had to also come with them, but he's not being used. Now, I'm not sure where the marionette first came to light, so I'm going to guess that this was the time that the marionette first existed. Why I say this? Because then 5 more kids get killed by the same murderer, which then possessed the animatronics, including the Golden Freddy suit, and the marionette helped the dead kids possess them. Then later in the same restaurant, they reopen it, and it replaced the old animatronics with the new toy animatronics. I say it's the same because the job newspaper says, "Vintage Pizzeria given new life." And we know for a fact that this was the first time we see the marionette, so he either started with the toy animatronics or probably before that. This takes place in the year that ends in 1987, as it says on the paycheck you receive when you beat the final night. Then the murder comes back, and I guess he kills more, as the phone guy said in night 6, in the second game. Then the toy animatronics are discontinued to recontinue the old animatronics and are reconstructed. That should give us the hint that it takes place in the first game, as the animatronics are supposed to look less ugly. The puppet also came with, but is hiding somewhere. Then the latest timeline we know is the first game. As we should know, the phone guy is supposed to die there, but we don't see the year of date when you get the checks in the first game, so it should happen sometime after the second game. From what we know so far about the third game, we can clearly see the toy animatronic parts in a toy box. I can even see that mysterious paper plate figure, by the way. Now, the toy animatronics are not supposed to exist before the second game. By examining this, so as we can see, it should not take place anywhere before the second game. There are two possibilities when the third game should take place. Either after the first game, or in between the second game and the first game. Now, what makes me believe that it would take place after the second game, but before the first game? Well, remember how Smike debunked the latest teaser with the toy box of the toy animatronic parts? And when you brighten the image, you can see some kind of animatronic on the right. Now, from what I see, it looks like one of the withered animatronics from the second game. So this gave me to believe that the old animatronics have not been remodeled, or they just kept the withered animatronics and built new ones from scratch. Now, I want the game to take place at the latest timeline, because I don't like to be in the past, because that would just ruin the plot for me. So yeah, those are the top 10 things I want to see in the next game. Feel free to disagree or agree with my suggestions. What do you guys think? Thanks for watching my video. This is Darkstar Archangel, signing off.